But today, I'm the greatest of all time. Thank you.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top.
Yo, no, I ain't the type to give up. If I do something, man, I do it till I get what I want. I turn a business out of nothing into something I love. I got a poker face, but honestly, I'm not one to bluff. I flip a switch, never miss, man, I always stay up. Don't let them see you always have a plan to stay tough. This life ahead of you ain't easy, it was built to be rough. But that's what makes a personality is tragedy, bruh. So keep your head on your shoulders. Now we ain't out here moving rocks, we out here moving boulders. Now we ain't getting posterized, we out here making posters. And we ain't got nothing to hide, we move forward like soldiers. You better wake up for the pay stub or you'll pay up. Don't make love to the game, bruh, fuck the game up. Change up, rearrange stuff to your greatness. Same us for the way up, play the game, bruh.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top, yeah.
You know I'm always honest, there ain't no way I'll never stop it.
I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top,
I'm always flirting with pain, she like to hurt me and maim. I'm always working to change, but she's still lurking the same. I keep on building a dynasty while the haters be trying me, but they hate from inside.
All right, what is up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Unscripted here on the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network. I'm your host, producer, moderator, whatever you want to call me, Logan Landers. And join me to talk about the college football final rankings is, as always, Jay McLovin. Jay, what's going on?
Hey, I'm doing well. Texas is number 3. Let's go, Killers. Let's go.
And as you heard, Texas, of course, number 3. We'll talk about them in just a second. And below Jay, actually, at the top of Jay is Dustin Reese, our stat guy. What's up, Dustin?
Boy, the college football playoff committee made this interesting.
Yes, they did. And we're going to break down teams. We're going to do 1 through 10. We're going to be a little extra today. We're going to be doing some things that other people may not be doing. We're going to do top 10. We could do 25, but that would be super long show. And like I said, we're just going to do top 10 for the moment. So did they get it right? Pretty straightforward question. It's been on the mind of a lot of people since it was released a couple days ago. We're going to start at number 1 and work our way to number 10. So first, Michigan. And guys, just give you quick thoughts on this. Did you think Michigan deserved to be the number 1 seed? Jay, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, honestly, I think they did get it right, man. Michigan's undefeated. They played Ohio. They played a very competitive schedule, and they won their conference championship. When you win the Big Ten, you're undefeated, and you played a hard schedule. How could they not get it right? And when Corum is doing what Corum's doing, and McCarthy has played as well as he's played, yeah, they absolutely 100% got that one right. There's no doubt about it. Matter of fact, if they had not had them number 1, I definitely would have been saying they got it wrong.
All right, Dustin, do you agree? Is Michigan the number 1 team in the country?
No, I completely disagree with Jay, and I think they got the whole top 4 wrong, in my opinion.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. All right. So do you want to say who do you think needs to be number 1 then?
Washington should be number 1. And you have to look at it for who they beat during the year. They beat Oregon twice. They beat Arizona, who was a top 25 team that finished 14. They beat Utah, who was a top 25 team when Washington played them. They beat USC, a top 25 team when Washington played them. They beat Oregon State, a top 25 team when Washington played them, and they're number 19 right now.
And did they have Cam Rising? Did Utah have Cam Rising when they played?
It doesn't matter, Jay. It doesn't matter. You look at
okay. I just want to make sure we took that into consideration.
You look at where the team was ranked when they played. Washington has the most top 25 wins of any team in the country. Strength of schedule, Washington's strength of schedule is the 3rd hardest strength of schedule in the country. Do you happen to know where Michigan is ranked, Jay? I'm going to just ask you.
Where are they at?
49th hardest schedule in the country. So where are you getting that Michigan had a hard schedule this year?
Penn State was no joke.
Penn State and Ohio State.
Ohio was no joke.
That's it. Those are the only 2 ranked teams that Michigan played all year.
Yeah, but they're highly ranked teams. They're not like they're bottom of the road. It's not like they're playing Utah with no freaking Cam Rising. Come on.
Oregon was a highly ranked team that Washington had to play twice. Not once, but twice.
And how bad did USC destroy your defense? Even though you got the win, I'll give you that. Still, USC put a lot of points in that defense that is soft as freaking Charmin.
What happened? Who won?
I'm just trying to tell you, your defense is soft.
So Dustin, just to circle back here, so you would have Washington at 1 and Michigan at number 2. Is that right?
Yes, just because of the strength of schedule, I would have Washington 1, Michigan at 2. Those two, I think the committee got right. Just in terms of who's 1 and 2, I think you can flip 1 or 2 just kind of based on your opinion. But in the top 4, I think 1 and 2 the committee got right. It's the rest of the top 4 that I think they got wrong in some parts of it, which we'll touch later. Right. But if I could change this, I would have Washington 1 and Michigan 2 based on the strength of schedule.
Okay. Now, Jay, I know you did, obviously just talk a little bit about Washington and debating with Dustin on if, they should be number 1 or not. Now, do you feel that they should be, I know because you say you think they should be number 2. Is that the right spot for them?
It is the right spot for them because they are undefeated and they did win the Pac-12 championship, and they did beat Oregon. But the fact that they played a crappy freaking Utah team and they played a very, let's just say, lackadaisical on defense USC team left me a lot to be admired about this team. They do deserve the number 2 spot for that reason. Like Dustin said, they had a good playoff or good regular season run, and they are undefeated. I'm gonna give them that. But I don't think they last long when they play Texas in the bowl game. I think Washington's going to be kicked out relatively quickly. But they do deserve the number 2 spot based on the fact that they're undefeated, based on the fact they won their conference, based on the fact they beat Oregon twice. Yeah, I'll give them that for sure.
Okay. Also, my thoughts. I think that when you look at Michigan, the reason they were placed at number 1, and you guys have mentioned the big games, obviously, but I just want to talk about their dominating win, obviously, against Iowa. For love of God, they shut them out, which, granted, that's not saying a whole lot considering Iowa's offense was, one of the worst in college football. But still 26-0 in a bowl game, in a conference game, that's impressive. So I can see why they put Michigan there at number 1. All right, so let's move on to number 3 now. Dustin, we'll flip the script here. We'll have you go with Texas. Now, Texas coming into this week, they weren't in the number 3 spot. We know, Georgia was there, Florida State was there, yada, yada, yada. Should Texas be number 3? Do you think they were ranked too high? Or what were your thoughts with Texas moving into the Final Four?
I think Texas should be in the Final Four, but I think they should be 4th. And that's not a knock against Texas because Texas is playing well. I'm not going to take anything away from Texas. But the fact that they punished Florida State for not having Jordan Travis is a travesty. It is a flat-out travesty. You have a Power 5 team that went undefeated, that had to play 1 game with a backup quarterback and 1 with a backup quarterback. Then they went into the conference championship game against a very solid Louisville team with a 3rd-string quarterback who saw a total of 14 snaps all season. And granted, the offense didn't play well. They still beat Louisville with a 3rd-string quarterback. Under no circumstance should an undefeated Power 5 conference team get punished just because their starting quarterback is out. And my argument to that, my argument for the playoff committee now is this. If you're punishing Florida State for not having Jordan Travis, then Jordan Travis should be winning the Heisman because by punishing Florida State, you're showing that Jordan Travis is the best player in the country because you don't think Florida State deserves to be there because Jordan Travis is not there. Okay. All right.
Jay, obviously this is your team. I know you're happy about the results, obviously, being in the top 3. Did you feel that, obviously Texas is in the right spot here above Alabama, who y'all beat early on in the season?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we took a 1 loss to Oklahoma. Okay, it is what it is. But we beat Alabama, and Alabama beat Georgia. So I don't know why you would think we wouldn't be in the number 3 spot. The fact that FSU's not there, they shouldn't be there because let's be honest. I don't want to see FSU there. They're not a good competitive team. Hold on. They shouldn't be there. I'm sorry. Yes, they beat Louisville, but Louisville is a decent team. But it's not. They have no chance in hell at being number one at the end of it all. They have no chance of winning. And if they don't have a chance of winning, I don't want to see them in there. It's a weak team. They're going to get destroyed by any one of these 4 teams would destroy them. Either one of them would destroy them. They're not going to get past that. So I don't want to see a bullshit team in there when they don't deserve to be in there. I'm sorry. Yes, they're undefeated. Yes, they're a power of 5. But I'm sorry. No Roadmaker, no Travis. You got a third-string quarterback. What's that going to do for you? It ain't going to do nothing. So just because you want to get in there because you're an undefeated power 5, and I'm sorry. Just because, you lost your main quarterback, it doesn't mean that whole team – I hate that. Oh, he should get the Heisman because, no. Because there's other teams that they're just as good as Jordan Travis that if you took them away from their teams would have the same inclination. It just doesn't work. That makes no sense to me, but it's okay. But no, I do think that Texas should be number 3 just simply because they have beaten an SEC champion, and an SEC champion did beat Georgia. So, yeah, they absolutely deserve the number 3 spot.
Before you go, Logan, I just want to say something to what Jay said.
Yeah, real quick.
How you're saying that Florida State doesn't have a chance to beat any of these
They
teams.
don't.
Okay? Did anybody give TCU a chance last year to do what TCU did? And they
don't go to TCU. We're talking about this one. Why are you bringing up TCU?
TCU had 1 loss. TCU was viewed as a team that should not have made it into the college football final, but the only reason why they did was because they started the season 12-0, ran the Big 12 undefeated, and they even lost the Big 12 championship game and still got into the college football final with 1 loss. Florida State didn't even lose their conference championship game. They won it to stay undefeated. You cannot punish an unbeaten Power 5 conference team no matter who's playing and who's not playing. It is still a Power 5 conference. They still have
I understand your reasonings. I understand everything you're saying. I'm not – hey, look, all the political stuff that you're saying – okay, we can go to the political side. But as a fan of good college football, I don't want to see it. It's weak football. I don't want to see it on that personal level. But on a political stage, yes, you have a gripe. But I don't want to see a political playoffs. I want to see good quality football, and Florida State can't give me that. So I don't want to see as a fan of football, I don't want to see that.
So what if Alabama beats Michigan by 30?
So
are you going to say Michigan shouldn't have been there because Alabama beat them by 30?
No, Alabama is a damn good football team, and you know it. I'm not even going to entertain that. I'm not even going to entertain that.
But I'm saying any one of these 4 teams could lose by 30 points to somebody if they have 1 bad game. What if Quinn?
Of course you could. I'll give you that, but again,
all right.
As a fan, you can't say that you want to see good quality play.
FSU's not going to give me good quality football.
All it would take is an injury to Penix. All it would take is an injury to Milroe. All it would take is an injury to Quinn Ewers. And any one of these top 4 teams would get the doors blown off of them by 30. So you can't make that argument.
But are they injured right now or no? Going into it, are they injured or no?
So they're all healthy. So let's finish out the top 4 here with Alabama, who got the big win, obviously, in the SEC championship game, defeating Georgia by 3 points. It was a close ball game, and it was enough for the committee to knock Georgia out. We'll get to them in just a second. But should Alabama, and that's kind of a big question everyone's been obviously saying, is should Alabama be in the top 4 and ranked at number 4? So, Jay, I'll let you go first. My question to you is just that. Should Alabama be in this top 4 at number 4? And if not, who should it be? So, Jay, go ahead.
No, absolutely. Again, this SEC champion, and they won it pretty well. And so, absolutely, I do 100%. Milroe is playing out of his mind right now. The whole team is playing out of their mind right now. They're playing good, tough football. And I'm sorry, Georgia, man. I know you wanted to be in it, but if you're not the SEC champion, then you shouldn't be there, man. And again, we all know that Georgia had a soft schedule, right? Let's not act like Georgia had the toughest schedule in the world, right? So for that reason, because their schedule was so soft and they didn't win their championship, yeah, it's number 4, Alabama.
All right, and Dustin, I know you've said that you think it should be Florida State.
This is where I think Texas should be.
Okay, so you have Texas at 4.
I'm not taking Texas out of the top 4 just because they beat Alabama. So regardless of where Alabama finishes, Texas needs to be ahead of Alabama because they have the head-to-head on them.
Correct.
So I'm not mad that Texas made the top 4. I expected Texas to make the top 4 just because they beat Alabama. They had that head-to-head. I just don't think Alabama should be in over Florida State. I just don't. I don't care if they won the SEC. They don't have a better record than Florida State. And that's exactly the argument that everybody was making that is a non-SEC backer and a non-SEC fan. Joey Galloway, who's the biggest Ohio State backer in the history of Ohio State people, who's been trying to push Ohio State into the college football final pretty much all year, even said the same thing. If you're a Power 5 conference and you're going undefeated, there's not an argument you can make to leave you out of the top 4 even with injured players, because there's not. It's a Power 5 team.
All right. So we're at Florida State. You guys have given your thoughts on it, but just go ahead and put a nice little bow tie on it. Florida State, undefeated, won the ACC. We all know, we've talked about it. And they missed the cut. They missed the cut in the top 4. They will be taking on Georgia in the Orange Bowl. So just, Dustin, we'll have you go. Your final thoughts about Florida State missing the top 4 this year. The first time in the 14 selection process. This is the last year of it, obviously. But the first time since they've been doing it that an undefeated Power 5 conference has missed the top 4. Go ahead.
Well, this is the reason why they've been talking about expanding the playoffs for years. Because you knew you were going to come into a situation like this where theoretically you had 3 teams, technically 4 teams with Texas, deserving of those final 2 spots. The only thing that they didn't account for was they expected all 4 of those teams to have 1 loss, not have an undefeated team and then 3 teams with 1 loss. But this is why the college football playoffs are going to get expanded, because then you don't have to worry about situations like this where Florida State's undefeated, they get left out, but even as a 5 seed, they would still be in the college football playoffs because they'd be playing Alabama in the 4-5 matchup as opposed to missing out. I don't think they're going to beat Georgia just because I think Georgia is going to play more so with a chip on their shoulder. I think they're going to play pissed off because they lost. Not only did they lose, but they lost their college football playoff spot with that loss. So even if Jordan Travis was healthy, I don't think Florida State beats Georgia anyways. It's just Georgia's a better team than what Florida State is, and Georgia's playing angry now, and that's not a good combination that you want to have.
All right, Jay, do you have your final thoughts on Florida State?
Yeah, I agree a lot with what Dustin said for the first time yet. I absolutely do think that Florida State is in the right spot at number 5. And I do think, when they play against Georgia, even though they had a soft schedule, should be able to beat Florida State. So, I think they're absolutely in the right spot at number 5. That's where I had them all along, was at number 5. I think that's one of the best spots, I think. You could probably make like Dustin said, you can make it, I guess, a quote-unquote exception for 1 and 2, but I think 5 and 6 are exactly the way it should be.
All right, so speaking of 6, let's go to the Georgia Bulldogs. Fall from grace, we're at number 1, and after the tough loss to Alabama, they fell out to the number 6 seed. Is this where you had them being ranked, Dustin?
Honestly, no. And I
Where
didn't even
have them then?
I honestly have them at 8.
8?
Yep.
Okay.
And my argument for that is because I had Alabama at 5. I have Ohio State at 7 because they have a better strength of schedule than what Georgia has. And I base the strength of schedule a lot on how I rank these teams, just because you have to look at the body of work they've done throughout the whole year. And Ohio State had a better schedule than what Georgia had, so I moved Ohio State to 6. And I put Oregon at 7 because both of Oregon's losses came to Washington, and they were both 3-point losses. There is not another team. There's not a better 2-loss team in the country than Oregon, and I think everybody on this panel will agree with that. There's not a better 2-loss team in the country than Oregon. But you put Oregon up against Michigan. You put Oregon up against Washington again. You put Oregon up against Texas, Alabama, any of these other teams ranked ahead of them. Not only can Oregon compete with them, but Oregon can beat any one of these top 7 teams. And you've seen it on a weekly basis. That's why even with 2 losses, I think Oregon is actually ranked ahead of Georgia just because I think they are a better team. They are the best 2-loss team in the country. And obviously you have to play Washington because they're part of your conference. But going 0-2 against the number 2 ranked team in the country, losing both games by 3 points just because who had the ball in his hand last? Michael Penix. Both games against Washington, Michael Penix Jr. had the ball in his hand last, made the throws he needed to make to run out the clock. If he doesn't run out the clock, you might be looking at Oregon being ranked number 2 and not Washington.
All right. Jay, did you think Georgia was going to drop all the way to 6?
Actually, I had Georgia dropping to 7. I actually had Ohio State going at number 6. Those would have been the 2 that I would have flipped. Just because I felt like Georgia. For me with Georgia, it all just comes down to strength of schedule, kind of like what Stat Guy was saying. Like I said, I felt Ball State and Georgia Tech and all these little small time teams that they're playing. Before what they really play? What they played? Ole Miss, right? I mean, that was and what I think is one of their. They didn't play anybody really, truthfully to me, Logan, to be where they are. So I actually had Ohio at number 6 and Georgia at number 7.
All right, and let's go to number 7. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, Florida State will now play Georgia in the Orange Bowl later on in the month. That's going to be a good game. It's going to be in Miami. That's going to be a very good game. 2 teams are pissed off that they didn't make the top 4. So I'm expecting a great game between those 2. All right, Ohio State, number 7. We also learned that Cal McCord, their quarterback, is now going to the transfer portal. So he'll more than likely be somewhere else next season. But what's up?
That's something I wanted to talk about before we close out on the show if we have time to.
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, go ahead.
So we always talk about free agency in the NFL, right?
Uh-huh.
You look at all these quarterbacks that just entered the transfer portal, and college football is literally about to become free agency.
It is.
You have DJ Uiagalelei from Oregon State, who just entered the transfer portal, has 2 years of eligibility left, and he was a former Clemson starter, so you know he's going to go to a big program. You have Cam Ward from Washington State, who just had a breakout year, entering the transfer portal. He's going to land somewhere for 1 year of eligibility left. Kyle McCord, Ohio State, 12-1 as a freshman this year. He's got 3 years of eligibility left. He's hitting the transfer portal. Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma entered the transfer portal. You know someone's going to take a swing at Dylan Gabriel next year, especially with the year that he had this year. The transfer portal used to be for players that came into a program where they had to walk on their first year. After their walk-on year, they're still the 3rd or 4th string on the depth chart, and then you're entering year 3 with the program, and you're still kind of that 3rd or 4th option on the depth chart, so you typically transfer out of a school for a better opportunity. Right. The transfer portal now is literally the free agency period for college football, where players just say, well, I want to go here. Like Kyle McCord, for example. I don't know why he's leaving Ohio State. Yes, Ohio State has a good quarterback coming in next year, but that doesn't mean that quarterback's going to beat McCord out as a freshman because McCord knows that system already. But McCord just decides to leave. Same thing with Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel stays at Oklahoma. Oklahoma's going to have a very solid team next year. DJ Uiagalelei stays at Oregon State. Oregon State's going to have a very solid team next year, but for whatever reason, they want to transfer out. And it's exactly what Matt Rule said 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you guys caught his press conference that day when they were talking about the NIL and everything.
I have not, no.
So he was talking about the NIL and how the NIL has changed college football because now you have all the players that can get the NIL deals and kind of get paid that way. And Matt Rule specifically said, if you want to have a successful college football program, you need to have a successful quarterback. The only way to have a successful quarterback in today's college football world is to get one in the transfer portal. But it's going to cost you $2 to $3 million to get a quarterback in the transfer portal. That goes to show you that quarterbacks and transfers in college football now are being treated like NFL free agents because whoever has the most NIL money to give you, that's where you're going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said. Jay, give us your thoughts on Ohio State being ranked number 7. And if you also want to touch on the Cal McCord transfer, you're welcome to do so.
No, I agree with everything what Dustin is saying for sure. I mean, the transfer portal is free agency, and the minute you brought NIL money, even though the students deserve the money, because let's be honest, I mean, if they take a career-ending hit, that takes away their NFL money. So I do believe they should be paid, but the double-edged sword or the pros and cons of it is, even though now that they're getting paid, it really does make college football now professional football. It's almost like it's the minor league of baseball. So it is what it is. And, it's going to be a lot tougher for a lot of these top programs to get what they're getting. With that being said, though, yeah, like I said, I think Georgia belongs at number 7. Just because, like I said, strength of schedule and the fact that they lost their conference championship just further solidifies that they didn't deserve to be where they were. So I think number 7 is the appropriate spot for Georgia.
Okay. Up next, we got Oregon, number 8, with Oregon Ducks, as Dustin had mentioned. His pick for the best 2-loss team in college football. Dustin, go ahead and remind us where you had Oregon ranked originally. Dustin?
Hold on one second.
All right. Well, Jay, we'll kick it to you then.
Yeah.
Give your thoughts about Oregon being ranked number 8.
Just like Stat Guy said, man, Oregon is the best two-loss team there is. Both their losses came by a way of a field goal to Washington, and you obviously know where Washington currently is ranked at number 2. So that just kind of gives you an idea about, like Justin said, their strength of schedule was amazing. The fact that they lost 2 is what kept them in the top 8. Bo Nix is amazing. They did win, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong. No, they lost. I apologize. But either way, they definitely deserve the top 8 spot just on strength of schedule and the fact that they lost 2. And Bo Nix is one hell of a guy that's quarterback in that team. I can't imagine who else you would put there. If Ohio is at 7, Ohio's at 6, Georgia's at 7, then I think you've got to go Ohio at 8. I don't think Penn State or Mizzou or Ole Miss or any of these other guys deserve that spot over Oregon.
All right. And Dustin, are you back with us?
Yeah, I'm back.
All right. Go ahead and talk about Oregon being number 8.
Like I said, I thought Oregon should be 6th in my opinion, even 7, just because who they lost to and how they lost. And I mean, if Michael Penix doesn't have that ball last, Bo Nix does. And if Bo Nix wins both of those games, Oregon's sitting at number 2 and not Washington. If Washington and Oregon go 1-1, there's a good chance that both of those teams could have got into the college football playoff, realistically, because of how they played throughout the whole year. And I'm not saying that would have kept Texas out, because I think if Washington and Oregon both go 1-1, I think Texas moves up to number 2. And I think Oregon gets 3 and Washington gets 4. That just goes to show you how thin of a margin those games were between Washington and Oregon and how close Oregon was to being a top 4 team.
Right. All right. Yeah. I mean, well said. And Oregon, they'll be taking on number 23 ranked Liberty. That's going to be in the Fiesta Bowl. In the Fiesta Bowl. So buckle up, Liberty. It's going to be a fun ride.
It's going to be a fiesta for Oregon.
Yeah. They're going to be getting their chips and queso, and it's going to be a good time. All right. Number 9, we're rocking with Mizzou with the Tigers. Yeah, I mean, honestly, a team that not a lot of people thought would be in the position they were at. Number 9, finishing the season at 10-2. And Missouri, they'll be going up against the Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. So we'll start with Jay. What did you think of Missouri, them being ranked number 9? And I thought really solid year for them.
Yeah, the reason why I got them ranked number 9 is based on primarily, number 1, on how they played, and number 2, on strength of schedule. I mean, they have played all the tough teams. They haven't had, any off time truly in their schedule. So I had them ranked at number 9. I almost would have put Penn State there, but because Penn State lost to both Michigan and Oregon and Michigan and Ohio, you just can't do it. So you got to keep them at number 10. But just because of strength of schedule alone and the fact that they had a winning record is why I got them at number 9. I really don't follow Mizzou heavily, but I do follow their schedule heavily. And I know that they played Georgia and all the tough SEC teams out there, and they held their own.
Yeah. Dustin, what did you think of Missouri being ranked number 9 in the nation?
I flip flop Penn State and Missouri.
I can't believe you would say that.
Well, mainly because Penn State lost to the number 1 ranked team in the country and the number.
No, you said that because when I went first, and you couldn't go with what I.
No, I was going to say even if I went first.
Yeah,
I just looked at it because you look at who Penn State lost to. They lost to the number 1 ranked team in the country, and they lost to the number 7 ranked team in the country. Missouri lost to the number 5 ranked team in the country in Florida State, and the number 13 ranked team in the country, LSU. So both of them have 2 losses with 2 opponents in the top 15, but Penn State has 2 losses to 2 better teams. And that's the only reason why I put Penn State ahead of Missouri. Like I said, when you get to 9 and 10, it really doesn't matter anyways because they'd be out of the playoffs regardless. But I just think Penn State at number 9 is a better fit just because you look at who they lost to.
Okay. All right. And final topic here, final team. Also, Missouri, they'll be taking on, like I said, Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. And our final matchup here, final team we're going to be discussing is the Penn State Nittany Lions, currently ranked at number 10. They'll be facing off against the number 11 ranked Ole Miss Rebels in the Peach Bowl. So, Dustin, we'll have you kick things off. Penn State finishing the season at number 10. Once again, they finished the year at 10-2. Go ahead.
Yeah. And like I said, I would have Missouri sitting at.
Oh, looks like we lost Dustin for a second. Well, Dustin, whenever you get back, just let us know. We'll get your thoughts on it. Your internet connection or something went to the wayside. It was an onside kick there, Jay, with his coverage. Well, Jay, we'll mosey it on over to you then. Talk about Penn State being ranked number 10. Once again, 10-2 on the season. Overall, pretty solid season, but just couldn't really get over the hump. I feel obviously, the tough loss to Ohio State in the middle of the season, and then obviously Michigan. So their 2 teams they lost to were absolute buzzsaws.
And that you just hit the nail on the head, and that's why I have Penn State at 10. Had they won at least one out of those 2 games, I would have definitely bumped them up ahead of Mizzou. That's the thing about Penn State. Penn State always has the ability to leapfrog into the top 4 if they can just knock out Michigan and Ohio. And that's not an easy task to do, by the way. But if they can ever get to a point where they can knock those 2 teams out, they are a for sure top 4 team. Even if they just knock one of those 2 out, I think they could be a top 4 team. But because they lost both of those teams, which really is the bulk of the strength of schedule that they have, that's why it knocks them down to 10. Had they taken at least one out of those 2, it could have been the difference maker. But when your 2 biggest, teams that give your schedule credibility, and you don't beat those 2 teams, or at least one of those 2 teams, then you just kind of get what you get, and that's why they're ranked at number 10.
Okay, Dustin, we got you back. Go ahead and finish out your thoughts on Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, like Jay was saying, the only 2 difficult games Penn State tends to have are Michigan and Ohio State, and those are the only 2 teams that James Franklin hasn't beaten. But the only reason why I bumped them ahead of Missouri, you look at the head-to-head matchups that Michigan had, that Penn State had, and that Ohio State had against common opponents. So Iowa, the same opponents like that are in the same Big Ten East. Penn State had a bigger margin of victory against the same opponents that Michigan had, and a bigger margin of victory against the same opponents that Ohio State had. That goes to show you that they are just as good, if not better, than both of those teams. But when you get to playing those 2 teams, I think it's less on the players itself at that point and more on the coach. Jim Harbaugh and Ryan Day are both better head coaches than James Franklin. But from a talent level alone, I think Penn State has more talent than Michigan. I think Penn State has more talent than Ohio State, and I know for damn sure Penn State's quarterback is a lot better than Ohio State's quarterback. But ultimately what it came down to was just the poor decision-making that James Franklin made in both of those games. Against Ohio State, he cost his team at least 10 points by going for it on 4th down and not getting it, and then jumping offsides on 4th down, leading to an Ohio State touchdown. That was a 10-point swing. Same thing against Michigan. You can't have a turnover inside the Michigan 10, which is what Penn State did. They forced the Michigan fumble at Michigan's 9-yard line, so Penn State only had 9 yards to go. And they got a field goal out of that because of James Franklin's play calling. Things like that are why Penn State loses to teams like Ohio State and Michigan, and it has nothing to do with the players, because I think Drew Allard is a much better quarterback than Kyle McCord. I think Drew Allard is at the same level as J.J. McCarthy. It's just that James Franklin has always been a mediocre coach at best, and the reason why Penn State is always where they are is because the talent that James Franklin gets make up for his poor coaching decisions.
All right. Well, guys, your final say-so on the final college football rankings for the season as we get ready for bowl week here coming up in the following weeks. Dustin, your final thoughts.
This is why I think a lot of people wanted the playoffs expanded heading into this year. I think they're going to, 12 teams next year?
Yes.
I don't like the 12-team format because I don't think Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Penn State, or Missouri deserve to be in the college football playoff personally. But I think a top 8 is fine. Because you look at the top 8 teams, all 8 of them have a case as to why they should have been the number 4 ranked team in the country. They really do. Because you look at it, yes, Michigan undefeated, Washington undefeated, they should be in. Texas, 1 loss, they should be in. Florida State undefeated, they should be number 4. Georgia, 1 loss, they should be number 4. Bama, Ohio State, even Oregon, they all have an argument as why they should be number 4 because of the schedule, who they played, and whatnot. That's why going to the 8 teams gives these teams an opportunity to prove that they deserve to be there. And had there been an 18 playoff field this year, I don't think Michigan makes it to the final. I don't think Washington makes it to the final. And I don't think Alabama makes it to the final.
All right. Jay, your final thoughts on the college football playoff rankings heading into bowl week here very shortly.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Dustin in the fact that, playoffs should be expanded to 8 teams. Definitely not 12. I think that anything beyond 8 is just garbage time play, and I don't have time for garbage time play. Just give me the meat and potatoes, and the meat and potatoes is 8 through 1, right? Like Dustin said, you can make a case for all of those guys why they should be ranked at least number 4 or not. So just give me the top 8 and let's battle it out and see who's the best. In terms of the top 4 that are going to be playing, Texas will beat Washington. Michigan will beat Bama, and I think it's going to be It's going to be Michigan versus Texas, and an all-out scrum out, and it's going to be close.
All right, and of course we'll, obviously whenever those games get a little bit closer, we'll be doing some previews of all of that. Of course, it's going to be a fun time, fellas. Unfortunately, as college football is coming to an end here and whatnot in the 2023 season. I appreciate you guys, as always, coming on, talking about our thoughts on the Final Four for the College Football Playoff Committee. Dustin Reese, Jay McLovin, it's always a pleasure, my friends. I've been your host, moderator, producer, Logan Landers. Enjoy your weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you all again on another live episode. We'll see you soon.